All right, hello, friends. Welcome to our intimate discussion on the topic of ally to accomplice. My name is Joaquin Hamilton. I am the Associate Director of College Counseling here at the Westtown School. I'm here with two of my amazing student leaders here at Westtown to kind of host this kind of intimate conversation. I'm going to take a quick moment to actually let them introduce themselves. And Mal and Mo, if you can provide your name, your class year, your hometown, and your high school and the high school that you attend. Um, and then if you have maybe a fun fact that you want to give to some of our folks as well. We talked about maybe a list of club activities that you're involved in here at Westtown.
Oh, I can start us off. My name is Mohammed Abdulaziz. I'm a 23, so I'm a junior. And my hometown is Jersey City, New Jersey. And I go to Westtown School in Westchester, PA. And a fun fact about me is that I like ice cream, one of my favorite foods. And I also like to play soccer and uh, go to the gym on my free time.
Yeah, thanks, Mo. So my name is Malachi Neal. I'm also 2023, so a junior. I'm from Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and I also attend the Westtown School in Westchester, Pennsylvania. And a fun fact about me, like Mo, I like to play soccer, and I like brownies. Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, gentlemen. So, as always, for any start of any of our discussions or moments in the tradition of Quakerism here, we like to start with a moment of some silent reflection before we get started. So, if you all will welcome me into that, and then we'll get started on the other side. All right. Thank you, friends. Thank you, friends. So, we'd always like to start any discussion, with just some general rules of engagement, just some ways to kind of set the foundation. So, like, we're always here to really create a safe space for people to really share their thoughts, their feelings, and the opportunities to be vulnerable. We don't want anyone in our discussion or our conversation to feel unsafe or threatened to share their thoughts. And we don't want anyone to make someone feel uncomfortable. So if it's something that you don't agree with, that's completely understandable. But I would hope that we would also keep an open mind and let everybody be able to speak their truth. Um, as we'll get started, a couple things I want you to keep in mind is, like I said, be open minded and respect other people's opinions. You know, when we're talking to each other, always talk in a respectful manner. In this role, I'm also saying, be authentic in your questions. So, as we're discussing and having these points of dialogue, to have authentic inquiry. If it's something that you really don't know and you want to learn more about, it's okay to ask the question or okay to write that down, write that thought down, and go ask someone later if you have a real interest in it. And then my last rule is to not to be afraid to be wrong. Okay. I think some of these conversations we all come in with our bias, our prejudice, some misconceptions, some truths and understandings, but um, it's okay. And in many moments when we have those opportunities to engage with each other, there's moments when we're wrong or moments where our ideas don't quite hold up. And that's all right. I think it becomes a learning lesson for us all. So, with now that we have that established with Maul and Mo, I want to um, jump right into it. In the conversation around ally to accomplice, I'm just going to read over the description again. Um, is taking active steps to play a role in DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion, work can sometimes be as simple as saying something when you know someone is being treated wrong. When you find yourself in a position of power, how do you use it? As a group, let's examine how we each knowingly and unknowingly find ourselves in a position where we can use our voice and actions to push for equity and inclusion now and in the future. Um, I just want to take a moment to really give both Mal and Mo the opportunity to talk a little bit about, um, do you all have a moment that you can think of where you found yourself in that position of power, to go from ally to accomplice?
Well, I feel like for me as a proctor in the boys' dorm, for a lot of like ninth graders, sometimes they can like say things where like isn't right, but they don't know. So like I feel like being an ally is more of like if someone gets offended by what they say is like consoling them, but being an accomplice is more of like stepping in. So I feel like being like a proctor and trying to be like an example for those ninth graders is like stepping in and telling them you can't say that. You know, those kind of words aren't allowed in this space.
Um, well, I definitely find myself an ally in a lot of situations. Um, being in especially my previous schools, I've been in big communities with I've been in communities with a pretty large amount of LGBTQ plus IA like members. So being around a lot of people who, differ from me gives me a big chance to be an ally for them. And yeah, like really just supporting them and doing as much as I can to just let them know that I'm behind them and I support them is really just what it means to me to be an ally.
So thank you for sharing those thoughts and sharing those stories. In those moments, when you felt like you moved from ally to accomplice, where you actually jumped in to play an active role, how did that feel? Was that something that that you felt prepared to do? Was it something that you were um, expecting to do, or was that something that just kind of like happened in the moment and you felt like you had to react? And that goes for either Mo or Mal.
Well, for me, the times where, I've stepped in and had to tell somebody, oh, that's not okay to say, or, things like that. It's kind of just something that happens in the moment because you're kind of overtaken by like the fact that, they just disrespected or offended another person that you may care about or that you just, care about their feelings. So it's just kind of something that, takes over, at least for me, kind of just takes over me and just causes me to just step in and, say something to that person.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like sometimes like I remember a time I had to step in, it was like on a sports team. Like sometimes people like they make comments and you have to like sort of call them out and let them know that like it's not okay to say that, especially when I think it's especially important when like with the integrity piece, when there's like people of that like marginalized group are not around, like you really have to make sure that even though they're not present or like no one is there to like an authority figure isn't really there, like you still have to like step in and make sure that those things aren't being said.
And could you share with me, like, for you all, like what does it mean, or what's that, like how would you describe an ally versus an accomplice? We talked a little bit about some situations where you've been in, um, but for you, what does that mean?
Well, for me, being an ally was like sort of like, oh, I support this, or I feel that this group should be like XYZ. But then I feel like for an accomplice, like you're actually taking action instead of saying it, you're doing it, and you're actually following up with what you say.
Yeah, really spot on what Mo just said, but just to add a little, I just think that a lot of, people now kind of, they put themselves as like an ally to, make themselves, I guess it's especially in our generation now, it looks better to be supportive of, like the LGBTQ plus community and things like that. But not too many people take the extra step of, taking the initiative and being an accomplice. So I just feel like, that really what Mo said is just the difference between, saying things and actually taking the action on, the things you're saying.
And Mal, and I want to kind of like get to that point. I think you were hinting at. We talked. Sometimes like this allyship can be, some as people will say like performative, right? It could be, hey, you know what? I am in support of you, in words, um, and again it that works in a way too. But then when it's taking that next step to actually do something about it, um, can you share with me a little bit about and what are some of the ways, or what are some of the positions that you've had here at Westtown where action was speaking up, but also actually systematically doing things to like improve the experiences of other students on campus.
So well, I know at Westtown, there was a, I guess, kind of complaint that one student had about being a like a gay student on a boys dorm at meeting for worship. And just kind of, I feel like taking those conversations and those questions and taking away what, people in that community say, taking it back to your friend groups and taking it back to your group of friends and just kind of talking about, why might they feel this way. We live on those dorms too. And me and my friends, majority as, straight men, can definitely, help the people in the LGBTQ plus community feel more safe on our floors. So kind of just taking those questions and those statements that they say back to your friend groups and seeing how you guys can help you guys living in the same, space as them. And just things like that. I feel like it doesn't have to be, I feel like some people think, you know, to be an accomplice, to take the action, you have to do something very grand. But, I just feel like it could be things as little as just taking those conversations back to, other straight men or other people in your community and seeing how you can help these other people feel more safe and more comfortable in your space.
I think what Mal says is superb. I agree with everything he said. Um, I think a student leader like in a dorm, it's like really important to have those conversations, especially like in a boys' dorm where there's young men who may not like who aren't like aware of like of like people's like how uh say this. They're just not aware of like people's like situations from like just a variety of like topics and things like that. So I think it's really important to have those conversations. And as a member of SASH, like being part of the student advocates for student health, I think it's really important because like if someone doesn't feel like safe or happy, then like their mental health isn't being like respected. So I think it's really important to have like those discussions and take action and see how we can support our peers.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate that. I want to take a little bit of a moment to read this excerpt, and I will in the chat box I can put the actual link to it. But it is a quote that goes, "An ally in anyone from a dominant or majority group that is working towards ending oppression by supporting and advocating for those in marginalized and oppressed groups. Ally, accomplice, all accomplices are allies, but not all allies are accomplices. While an ally is willing to stand in support of a marginalized voice, risk is rarely involved. An accomplice uses the power and privilege they have to challenge the status quo, often risking their physical and social well-being in the process. As a high school student, and knowing you two as juniors, um, that idea of risking something for the betterment, the comfort, the support of someone that's not you, right? And it's very kind of like, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, very me focused um, um, narrative that's like surrounded by this generation. Um, how how do you manage that risk, right? Like, do you feel like ninth grade Mo and Ma would have taken the same risk as 11th grade Mo and Ma?
Um, well, really to speak on that, I just think about my past self. Definitely matured a lot now being a junior from freshman year, and I'll be completely honest. As a freshman, I don't think I would step in and say certain things because as a freshman I was kind of wrapped up in things like popularity and I wanted everybody to like me and things like that. But as you mature and you kind of realize that a group of marginalized people's feelings and overall well-being is way more important than two three friends or a couple people from a different school liking you. I think that's when you really start to step up and you start doing things a little bit more risky that might some people might look at you a little different and think you're weird, or they might challenge your opinions, but what you're doing deep down is in support of a lot of people and will make a lot of people lives a lot better and just help them feel more comfortable in a lot of places. Yeah.
I agree with Mal. I feel like ninth grade Mo was a bit like nervous and shy to speak up. Well, 11th grade Mo was a lot more comfortable and like having these conversations. And I remember freshman year we had these affinity groups, and I was like, my first I was like, I don't really need this Black Student Union, this. But like when you get older, you see the purpose for these affinity groups on campus. You see why they have them. You see why it's important to have these discussions. And now that I'm actually participating and stepping up and being in these, taking action, I think it's important to make sure that like you don't make that mistake with the current ninth graders or the current like 10th graders even, to like not be in these conversations. I think it's important to sort of draw everyone in to these conversations.
I really appreciate you both being vulnerable with that response and being honest about it. Can you talk to us a little bit about what, outside of just like our maturity, Mo, you mentioned about being like comfortable, right? Like you it's a point of getting comfortable. I don't know whether it was comfortable being yourself, comfortable for speaking up, comfortable for what. Um, what type of advice or what type of insight would you give a student who stumbles across this recording and they're trying to understand, like, why is this even important, why would I want to do something like that, or how you got to that point to say this is something that I want to do. What ingredient, you know what I mean, what tip would you give them on how to kind of like best develop that love, that consciousness?
Well, I think for me it was like just being comfortable, being for me being comfortable was like speaking from the heart. Because it was like when they have like, oh, we have a discussion on XYZ, I'm like, okay, why would I go to that? That's lame. I want to like spend time and hang out with my friends. But and maybe like you might be interested in it, but then you ask friends, are like, oh, I don't feel like going, so you choose not to go. But if you actually like go there, there's people who are like minded and who have the same like compassion for you do that you have for that like specific issue. So I think like just being there because you want to, not because you have to, I think is like really important. So that's like what helped me.
Yeah, so kind of what helped me become comfortable was kind of just trying it and stepping into that space of uncomfortability, just because I feel like, a lot of people they'll make their opinions, they'll form their opinions on, oh, like that's weird, I would never do that, but they've never actually tried it before. And for me, when I stepped into that place of uncomfortability, it was actually around seventh grade. At my old school friends select, I joined a club called Glow, and it was for gay, lesbian, and other sexual identities in the LGBTQ plus community. And it was I was in the group with a couple of my other friends as an ally. And when I actually stepped into that space, it kind of made me realize that, helping other people and making other people's well-being, putting that at a greater like value, kind of, it made me happy in a sense. It made me feel good about myself. So it was kind of just, once I tried it, I realized like, wow, this is not only something that benefits other people, but it makes me feel good about myself. So, why would I not continue if it was really just benefiting me and other people?
Again, I definitely appreciate both of your insight um, in these responses. I feel like I've been asking you a bunch of questions nonstop, so I'm gonna give you a quick second to breathe. Um, and I'm also going to give you the opportunity for us this to be kind of like a real dialogue. So if you have any questions of me, if it's anything that you, I know that, in starting to have this discussion, we've sat down and really had some really great conversations and thrown around some different ideas. So um, I know you all have some questions about this and some things you're unpacking. And if you need any or want to ask me any questions on your end, I'm happy to share my thoughts as well. Um, so to kind of get back to it is, you know, we talked a little bit about performative allyship earlier, and we talked about that being a little bit dangerous, right? Um, you know, we have, I think, as part of our identities as Black men, we've kind of also been on the other side of someone being an ally, and then also other folks per, doing performative allyship. And we've also had folks, I'm sure, in our lives to get us to the point that we're at, who's also been accomplices. Um, I don't necessarily need you to share any names or go into any details, but could you at least talk a little bit about some of those experiences where you have been on the receiving end, or you've experienced performative allyship, and then also some of the moments where you've experienced like a real accomplice, someone who you knew was really there fighting for you and fighting with you.
So for me, I was raised, and I still live there. It's kind of different now living at boarding school, but for almost my whole life, I've lived in like a majority Caucasian area. So I've been around a lot of Caucasian people, and really just, there was obviously a decent, a handful of people who, weren't, weren't allies nor accomplices, didn't really disguise I guess the hatred in a sense. And then meeting those first couple allies that I met, I don't know, middle school was like when I met my first group of friends that I was like, wow, these people, might actually care about, me. And meeting those first people, just those first allies, really just opened my mind to, wow, like these relationships can really be formed. And I really thought I thought that was like the best thing possible until I met actually my roommate now at boarding school. He is just he's also like a Caucasian male, and he is just one of the most like respectful people towards Black people that I've ever met. And it really just, not especially since I live with him, it really just it gives me so much, I don't know, like happiness in a sense that that I know there's people like who exist like him in a lot of communities and a lot of schools and a lot of jobs. And those people, I feel like, have so much power to really just rise up and, lead other people to being, I guess, kind of more like them when it comes to allyship and accompliceness. And yeah, so for me, it was really just meeting my roommate and those first couple friends in middle school that really just, gave me a lot of hope for relationships between the people being offended and the allies and the accomplices?
Unlike Mal, like growing up, for me, I lived in a predominantly like African American community, like to the point where my whole like my elementary and middle school, it was like 95% black. So I had people who looked like me, and I felt fairly comfortable. So I never really got a sense of like allyship or being someone being an accomplice. So I came to Westtown and I saw like all these people being like really supportive and stepping in. Like I saw a club like Aware, allied whites against racism, and like I think they like and they like fight for equity, something like that. I forgot the name of the club, but like seeing that like there's people that actually like care and they want to like make people like me comfortable in all kinds of spaces and be inclusive. Even at Westtown, like having conversations on like the A bar conversations and DEI conversations. I think like making it so that every single student has those conversations and is aware of it, I think is like really important.
Yeah, I kind of like to just say something one more time about, there's obviously there's the allies and there's the accomplices, but there's people within your own community that also really can help you find yourself. And high school is obviously a big place where you find yourself, and I'm still, trying to fully uncover my identity. But I can say before coming to Westtown and really just, I'm just gonna applaud Mo here. Mo is just one of the most like, he's a person, he's definitely gonna encourage you to, do things like this and really talk about your identity. And he's gonna encourage you to uncover your real self. And I really just, I thank Mo for that, because even before coming to Westtown, I'm still kind of unsure of myself. And I can definitely say I've uncovered a big part of myself being at Westtown, meeting people like Mo, like my roommate, and really just, people within your own race, within your own community can really also just help you uncover yourself just that much. I just wanted to give that example with, meeting Mo and what he encourages me to do and stuff like that.
Thank you for the kind words.
That's awesome. That's awesome, friend. That's awesome. I also wanted to, I really again appreciate you all sharing those moments of, experiencing that, and being on the flip side of what that feels like. There's one thing on, you know, our end. I think the first part of our conversation was really about, how we can play an active role in moving from ally to accomplice, how we could be very supportive of others and the ways that we could go out of our way, um, to really be conscious of how our different dynamics, within our communities, can go based off of the discussions and conversations that we have. With regards to experiencing it, right? Feeling it on the other end. Being in a situation where, someone or you may have overheard someone say something about you that was not favorable, and or even where we can go to the line of being like racist, and to have somebody else step in, before you even have to, or be able to shed light or educate, or stop the situation from even happening, does in many ways. It really does wonders for, as you talked about, Mo, before, your mental health. It does wonders for, your feeling of being comfortable in your own skin. And as Maul was talking about, being comfortable to even continuing to explore, your different identities and what that means to you. So definitely something that's super important. I think where it's about 11:03, so I know we're starting to get closer to the end. So I want to ask just one final question for, Malachi and for Mo. When you think of going into senior year and you think of going and the next step of, thinking about college, how do you hope to continue to showcase yourself, as an accomplice to those that, um, in some moments may feel marginalized, within the communities?
Well, I definitely want to, not be a performative ally and, be more of an accomplice. So I'd hope that by the time I'm, getting into college interviews and putting, things from my college resume, I can put actual accomplishments and actual things that I've done, for marginalized people and, things like that. So I really just hope I can prove it with action. So yeah, that's really what it is for me.
I feel like for me, it's like realizing how far I came and how far I can go. I know it's like in a lot of like affinity spaces or like student clubs for like helping people, there tends to be like a lack of like of male like leadership. I tend to see like a lot of like women in there. So I feel like as a man, like stepping up and trying to like get other men to be in these positions, like you can care about this too. It shouldn't be only women, leading these conversations, starting them and putting in all the work. We all have to help out. I think it's important, like, especially like when I go to like college and I just continue this, even as an adult, like have these conversations with my kids or like help like facilitate other conversations with other people. How can I help my community? How can I go back and improve the lives of others? So I think it's really important to just play your part in having a diverse, equitable, and inclusive world, and it will make the world a much better place.
Well, Malachi, I greatly appreciate everything you shared. And I just want to piggyback on some of the different things, some of the different themes that um, I really think touched or really kind of connected with me in my experience as well. You know, the idea of getting involved and getting active, stepping out of your comfort zone, leaning in. Those were things that I think are integral to the idea of being able to truly be compassionate to others. I would probably say my experience was very much closer to Muhammad's. Me going all the way through high school, really, I went to high school with a lot of students who, or my experience was a traditional public high school. So, the catchment area was, my neighborhood, and my neighborhood looked very much like me. It didn't really have as much diversity um, with regards to race and ethnicity um, as maybe some other neighborhoods. So I really didn't get a chance to experience maybe even what you with Mo and Malachi are experiencing, really not until I got off to college. So I was 17, 18 years old, first starting to like embark on these conversations around race and ethnicity and dealing with my own stuff, but also being introduced to new topics and new conversations, new people, um, and hearing new stories in college and being open-minded and being sincere in wanting to learn and wanting to understand um, really became something that was truly important to me, and I think in a lot of ways helped shape some of the conversations that I try to have with students today. I'm grateful that you all decided to have this conversation with the group today and be able to share this with others in the future through the recording. So um, I want to say again, thank you all for coming. I want to say thank you, Muhammad and Malachi, for sharing your thoughts. I want to give you all one last opportunity just to say thank you again, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for everyone coming out to this conversation. It was small, but it was like I feel like it was more intimate. And, our thoughts really like came across well in this conversation. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming out. It's definitely, yeah, like kind of what Mo said, a little small, but definitely an authentic conversation. And I just appreciate the space we created to talk about, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So yeah, thank you.
All right. So I think the recording is going to come to an end. Um, but I think we can still chat real quick.
In order for the recording to end, I have to end the actual meeting itself.
Oh, okay. Will you be able to edit by chance?
Say that again?
Will you all be able to edit by chance?
Yeah, I think they
Okay.
edit the start and finish, so you're good.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
All right, y'all. Have a great day.
Mo and Mal, thank y'all so much, man. I greatly appreciate it. There's on me one of these days. I'll invite y'all over. Y'all just gotta tell me what y'all like to eat. All right.
Hmm?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
All right, bye.
Appreciate you.